Life had been flowing smoothly for me. At 28, app design wasn't just a profession, it was my passion. I've always been self-sufficient, never needing help to navigate life's twists and turns. Though my parents lived in another city, they were always just a call away. Yet it had been years since I'd asked for more than their love and guidance. My cozy apartment, not far from the design studio where I spent my days, had become my peaceful retreat. I wasn't one for loud parties or nightlife. I preferred quiet nights immersed in design trends or studying the work of industry greats. I did, however, love the outdoors, and the park near my place offered me a serene escape. It all began there. One day, strolling along the familiar path in the park. The sun was just right, not too harsh, casting a soft glow over everything. With my headphones in, lost in thought about a project, I stepped onto the bike path without looking. Suddenly, a guy on a bicycle swerved and skidded to a halt right in front of me. "Watch where you're going," he shouted, a mixture of irritation and relief in his voice. Startled, I quickly removed my headphones. "Oops, sorry, I wasn't paying attention." He took a deep breath, a smile beginning to form. "You okay? Didn't mean to scare you." "I'm fine, just a little shaken." "How about you?" "I'll survive. Bikes can be replaced." "People, not so much," he said, leaning on his bike with an easygoing smile. And that's how I met Alex. He was the quintessential city guy, worked in car sales and always had a story to share. There was a rugged charm about him, and his grin could light up any space. Despite our rough start, we ended up talking right there on the bike path. "So, you make a habit of stepping in front of bikes, or is today special?" He joked, his smirk never fading. "First time for everything," I said, trying to mask my embarrassment. "Alex," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Lena," I replied, shaking his hand. "Let me guess, you're the artistic type, right? You've got that creative vibe." I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" "Yep, and I sell cars. Not as glamorous, but it keeps the lights on." We chatted for a while, exchanging little bits about our lives. The conversation flowed easily, as if we had known each other for ages. We exchanged numbers, and as I left, a strange feeling lingered in my stomach. Excitement? Uncertainty? I wasn't sure. From that point on, Alex and I began to spend more time together. What started as casual coffee dates turned into dinners, then weekends together. It felt natural, as though we had always been in each other's lives. One evening, after a long day at the studio, I came home to find Alex already there preparing dinner. The enticing aroma filled the apartment, and for a moment, it felt almost like a dream. "Hey, you're home early," I said, dropping my keys and heading toward the kitchen. "What's all this?" "Surprise?" Alex replied without looking up. "You've been working hard. Thought you deserved a break." I wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my head against his back. "You're amazing, you know that." He chuckled and spun around with a mock bow. "Only the best for you. Now go change. Dinner's almost ready." Later that night, as we sat down to eat, the conversation shifted to something more serious. "So I've been thinking," Alex started, his tone uncharacteristically serious. "About?" I asked, feeling a little anxious. "About us. About everything we've got going on." He gestured around the apartment. "I think it's time we took the next step." My heart skipped a beat. "Next step? You mean moving in together for real, no more back and forth?" I paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. It was a big decision. Was I ready for it? "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice softer. "It's a huge commitment." Alex reached across the table, taking my hand in his eyes locked with mine. "I've never been more certain of anything. I love you, and I want this to work. For real." His sincerity melted away any lingering doubts. "Okay," I said, smiling. "Let's do it." We quickly found a new place, a larger, brighter apartment in a neighborhood neither of us was familiar with. It was exciting, decorating together, making the space our own. But with the new place came new challenges, and the honeymoon phase couldn't last forever. Months later, we hit our first real obstacle. "Can we talk, Lena?" Alex asked one evening, his tone serious. I muted the TV, turning toward him. "What's going on?" "It's about us. Our future," he said, pausing before continuing. "I think it's time we talk about you maybe stepping back from work and focusing more on us. On our home." Frustration surged within me. Step back from work? Alex, you know how much my career means to me. I do, but don't you see? We could have so much more if we focus on building a life together, the traditional way. Traditional? The word stung, hanging in the air like a weight between us. It felt like we were speaking different languages. Alex, I love you, but I can't just give everything up for this. My career is part of who I am. He ran his hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. I just thought you'd want the same things I do. That was the first of many such conversations, each one harder than the last. Yes, we loved each other, but love alone couldn't bridge the gap between our different dreams for the future. One evening, as I was finishing a project on my laptop, Alex came home, looking like he had something on his mind. He dropped his keys on the table, the sound echoing louder than usual. So, babe, we need to talk, he said, his tone serious. I closed my laptop. What's going on? It's about us. About how we're living, he began, not meeting my gaze. I think it's time we start thinking about the future, about kids. Kids? I asked, caught off guard. Alex, do you know how important my work is right now? We've talked about this. Why bring it up now? Because things change. People change. Isn't it normal to want a family? To want your wife to be more present at home? His words hit hard. So what? You want me to drop everything? Give up my career just to fit into your vision of a normal family? I snapped, frustration clear in my voice. It's not about that, Alex responded, his voice rising. This is just how families work. The wife manages the home, and the husband provides. It's the usual way. Normal for who, Alex? I fired back, my temper flaring. Because this is definitely not the life I imagined. We're supposed to be a team, don't forget. But the pressure wasn't just coming from Alex. His mother, Mrs. Peterson, who lived nearby, seemed determined to make our home a project of hers. Her visits became more frequent, each one leaving me feeling smaller and less capable. One afternoon, I was working when she showed up uninvited, just as she often did. My stomach churned when I saw her standing at the door. Hello, dear. I thought I'd check in and see how you're doing, she said, her voice dripping with that all too familiar condescension. I'm doing just fine, thanks. I'm busy with work, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Oh, I see. Still glued to that screen? And what about Alex? Shouldn't you be making sure he's comfortable, ensuring he has a nice home to come back to? She began, walking around and inspecting the house, running her finger along surfaces as if looking for dust. Alex is an adult, he can take care of himself. This house is just fine, I countered, my irritation rising. When I was your age, I made sure my husband and home were my top priorities. Maybe if you spent less time on that computer and more time in the kitchen, things would be different, she suggested, the implication clear. I bit my tongue, holding back a response that would only make things worse. Thanks for the advice, but we're managing just fine, I said, forcing politeness into my tone. She huffed, clearly unimpressed, and continued her assessment of my home. After what felt like an eternity, she finally left, but the tension lingered in the air long after she was gone. The pressure from Alex and his mother never let up. It felt like they were working together to undermine my independence. I'll never forget the day I decided to pretend to quit my job. It felt like giving in, but I knew it was part of a bigger plan. Sitting across from Alex at the kitchen table, I braced myself for the conversation. The tension between us was palpable, the aftermath of too many arguments. Alex, we need to talk about my job, I said, trying to sound calm. His eyebrows furrowed, taken aback. What about it? I've been thinking about what you and your mom have said about family priorities, I said, choosing my words carefully. And I've decided to quit my job and focus on us, on our home. I could feel my heart sinking as I said the words I knew weren't true. For a moment, Alex just stared at me, then broke into a relieved smile. Really? That's awesome. I knew you'd come around. This is going to be so good for us. Yeah, great, I echoed, but it felt hollow inside. The plan was simple. I had spoken with my boss earlier in the week. He was understanding and offered me the chance to work remotely. That was my lifeline. Every morning after Alex left for work, I'd open my laptop and dive into design projects. It gave me a sense of peace, keeping my creative mind engaged. I opened a savings account and secretly deposited money into it with each project I completed. It felt like I was leading two lives, One where I was the obedient wife when Alex was around, and another where I was a successful designer when he wasn't. One day, as I was deep into a project, the doorbell rang, snapping me out of my focus. It was Alex, home earlier than expected. Panic gripped me. I slammed my laptop shut and shoved it under the couch just as he walked in. "Hey, what's up? Why are you home so early?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Meeting got canceled." "What's up with you?" "You look guilty," he joked, narrowing his eyes. "Just surprised to see you, that's all," I replied, forcing a laugh. He shrugged, thankfully letting it slide, but my heart was racing. That was too close. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Alex turned to me with a serious expression. "You know, now that you're home all day, maybe we should start thinking about kids," he said, his tone cautious. "Kids, Alex," I replied, exhaustion in my voice. "We've talked about this. I'm not sure now is the right time. But it's perfect timing. You're home, we're stable. What's holding us back?" His excitement mixed with frustration. I wanted to say so many things about my career, my need for independence, and the state of our relationship. But I swallowed my words and instead said, "We'll see, Alex. Let's just take it one step at a time." 3 months of living on Alex's income alone, and the cracks were starting to show. Our finances were tight. I hadn't touched the savings I quietly set aside, hoping Alex would notice the problem. But when we sat down to go over the budget, the reality hit. "Alex, we can't keep going like this," I said, trying to stay calm. "We're barely getting by. I think it's time I went back to work." His face darkened, and he slammed his coffee cup down. "Back to this again. I told you we're fine. You just need to cut back." "Cut back? I'm already stretching every penny." "Cut back on what, Alex?" "We're down to basics. I haven't bought anything for myself in months." He shot back. "That's not the issue. You need to manage better. My mom raised a family on less." His words stung. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He picked it up, listened for a moment, and then hung up with a sigh. "Mom's coming over tomorrow. She thinks she can give us some budgeting tips," he said, as if that would fix everything. "Great. A lecture on frugality from the woman who still does your laundry," I muttered, rolling my eyes. The next day, Mrs. Peterson arrived, all business. Without a greeting, she dove straight into her budget talk, her voice grating. "You know, when Alex was young, we didn't have much, but we made do. Maybe you need to rethink your priorities," she began, her tone patronizing. I stiffened. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Peterson, but I'm careful with our expenses." She waved it off. "It's about making sacrifices. Maybe less dining out, more cooking at home. Every little bit counts." "Dining out? We haven't gone to a restaurant in months." "Your assumptions are insulting." I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "I'm perfectly capable of running this household without drastic measures," I retorted. "Perhaps what we really need is additional income." Mrs. Peterson smirked. "My son works hard enough. It's not about earning more. It's about spending less. You'll see, with a few changes, you'll manage just fine." The changes she suggested were lockable. Clip coupons. After Mrs. Peterson's talk on budgeting, I was absolutely exasperated. She acted like I hadn't already combed through every coupon sale and cooked in bulk to make our meals last. Our freezer was packed with enough meals to cover the month. But she seemed to think I was clueless. As she left, I fumed. Not only had Al dismissed my concerns, but now I was being lectured on saving by someone who probably thought milk still cost $1. I had to talk to someone who wouldn't judge me. So I called my mom. Barely had I started speaking when Alex stormed in, face flushed red with rage. He must have overheard me talking about going back to work. "Who are you whining to now?" He spat, yanking the phone out of my hand so forcefully that I almost lost my balance. I was stunned. "Give me back my phone, Alex. I'm talking to my mom." He sneered. "A wife airing her problems. What's next? You gonna tell her I'm a terrible husband?" His words stung, sharper than I anticipated. "We're talking about options, not you. Since when is it wrong to talk to my mom?" I fired back, my own frustration bubbling over. The argument escalated quickly. The words came fast, sharp, and bitter. Alex stormed out, slamming the door with such force it felt like the walls were shaking. He was gone for hours, and I was left simmering with a mixture of anger and worry. When he finally came back, he was drunk, and the venom in his eyes was unmistakable. You think you're better than me, huh? Making more money, showing me up. He slurred, stumbling as he spoke. I was taken aback, but I held my ground. That's not it, Alex. We're struggling. I thought going back to work might help us breathe a little easier. He scoffed, his laughter harsh. Oh, so it's my fault now? Not enough. Well, if you don't like it, just leave. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's 3 o'clock a.m., Alex. You're drunk. This doesn't even make sense. He advanced toward me, fists clenched. Leave, he yelled. Without a second thought, I grabbed my essentials, my phone, my wallet. But as I reached for my purse, he snatched it away from me. Where do you think you're going with that? That's my money, he shouted. His words hit like a slap. I'd earned that money, but fighting about it felt pointless. I called a cab and left, the cold night air sharpening my senses. I checked into a nearby hotel, and as I sat there, the sterile room felt oddly freeing. It was clear now, there was no going back. The life I tried to build with Alex was over. But I had my strength, my skills, and a little savings to start anew. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The next morning, I walked into a lawyer's office, nerves tight in my chest. The weight of my decision pressed down on me, but I was determined. The lawyer, a serious man with a surprisingly soft voice, listened patiently as I explained my situation. Without wasting time, he pulled out the necessary paperwork and explained each step. His calmness helped to ease my nerves. You're making a brave choice, he said, handing me the pen. Sign here, and we'll take care of the rest. I signed without hesitation, my hand steady. It was done. I was filing for divorce. Walking back to the apartment felt surreal. Alex was passed out on the couch, oblivious to the fact that everything was falling apart. I quickly packed up my things. Each item I picked up felt like I was shedding the past. When I zipped up the last suitcase, Alex stirred, groaning as he woke. Hey, where's my beer? He mumbled, still groggy from sleep. I couldn't help but laugh. A bitter, hollow sound. Beer? The last thing you need to worry about is beer. He sat up, squinting at the packed bags. What's going on? You leaving? Something like that, I replied, holding out the divorce papers. Consider this my final goodbye. He glanced at the papers and smirked, scanning them slowly. This a joke? You'll come crawling back. Maybe I'll let you in if you promise to behave. I couldn't help but laugh again. But this time, there was freedom in it. Apologize for what? Finally standing up for myself? No, Alex, I'm done. He tossed the papers aside, his smirk fading. You think you can just leave? You'll come back. I shook my head, a calm settling over me. I won't, and you'll see I'll be better off without you. Without another word, I grabbed my bags and walked out for good. The new place was small, simple, but it was mine. It was just a short walk from my old job, offering a fresh start and a chance to rebuild. I needed to contact my old boss and see if I could come back to work. Picking up the phone felt like lifting a weight off my shoulders. Hey, it's me. I was wondering if there's any chance I could come back. I asked, trying to sound confident. After a brief pause, he replied, Of course. We've missed you. When can you start? Relief flooded through me. Really? I can start immediately. Thank you so much. The joy in my voice was genuine. Coming back to work felt like returning home. My colleagues welcomed me, and diving into design once again was invigorating. I was where I belonged, surrounded by people who respected and valued me. A few days later, after a successful project presentation, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hello? Lena, it's Alex. I heard you're doing well. That's good, he stammered. I wasn't sure how to feel hearing his voice again, but I kept my composure. Thanks. What do you want? I lost my job, he said, his voice shaky. Things are tough. I was thinking maybe you could help me out, and maybe we could try again. The audacity of his request stunned me. After everything, he thought he could still count on me. Alex, that part of my life is over. I'm moving forward. You should too, I said firmly. There was silence on the other end. Then, a resigned sigh. Yeah, I guess you're right. Take care. I hung up, a rush of empowerment surging through me. I was moving on, rewriting my own story, and I wasn't going to let anything or anyone hold me back. Life now was about rediscovering who I was without the burden of a failed marriage. It was about reclaiming my independence, my happiness, and my self-worth. I began reconnecting with old friends, trying new things, and even considering the possibility of dating again, this time knowing exactly what I deserved. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.